What is going on, everyone? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com. Welcome into your Week 7 edition of Auburn SEC Insider, brought to you by Keep Alabama Beautiful. The Auburn Tigers now 4-2 on the season, 1-1 in the SEC after falling to now top-ranked Georgia at home, 34-10. Tom Green joins me now to discuss all things Auburn football. Obviously, the showing that they had on the field against Georgia this week. That Georgia team is as good as advertised. I'd just like to get your thoughts on what you saw kind of off the top that sort of stands out to you about the now top-ranked team in the country and why they've been just so hard to move the football on throughout the season for most teams.
I mean, that defense is, like you said, as advertised. That defensive front, particularly, Jordan Davis, the guy, it's a mountain of a human being. There was one play where he just completely flattened Auburn center Nick Brahms, and I think Brahms got a holding call on the play too. So it was just a rough go, really hard to, win the line of scrimmage against a team like that. And, that was the biggest issue for Auburn, for most of the day, just not being able to win the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. And then, just some execution issues. I think Auburn came out with a really good plan, looked really strong on that first drive, and then they got inside the 10-yard line and, things just started going sideways, and, they settled for a field goal. Got fortunate that they didn't have a turnover there. But I think, if they just come out and gotten that touchdown off the bat, I think they would have kind of made a bit more of a statement there. But you get that field goal, then you get an interception, and Georgia ties it back up really quickly. Some of the air was just taken out of Jordan-Hare Stadium at that point. I think execution was one of the biggest issues for Auburn throughout the day.
Yeah, and execution in the red zone, a big area of concern, inability to score there in the red zone. Coach Harsin said, we have to finish drives, and that is the most frustrating thing right now. You could sense the frustration from him finishing the drives, and that's really what matters. If you can't put points on the board when you get in the red zone, obviously 3 points isn't going to cut it against the number one team in the country in Georgia. So, you kind of talk about Auburn opening with that what you classify as that methodical drive, 17-play drive against this Georgia defense, and then they go to the 9-yard line, and then they don't get it done. So just your thoughts on the red zone scoring and how much that's going to need to improve moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, Brian Harsin has harped on a few times this season. They've had to settle for a lot of short field goals this year, and, they need to do a better job of finishing off these drives and getting touchdowns instead of field goals. Field goals aren't going to win games against teams like Georgia or Alabama, or Ole Miss or, Texas A&M, these tough teams that are remaining on Auburn's schedule. You need to be able to execute in a short field and, really just capitalize on your opportunities. Obviously we talked about that opening drive where, very promising drive, very methodical, took, 7 minutes off the clock, I think. Got down inside the 10-yard line, and then, you had a dropped pass that would have been a touchdown. You had a near fumble that wound up being an incompletion and a loss of down because it was intentional grounding. Then you had a short pass that got you a little bit closer on third down, but you just couldn't punch it in from there. And I think some of that is the play calling for Auburn. I think on their first 2 drives inside the 10-yard line, they only called passing plays, and 6 of those 7 were incompletions. The other one was a short gain on third down. You look at their second drive, their second trip inside the 10-yard line there late in the first half, they had a chance to, get within a touchdown going into the break. And, they went for it on fourth down, didn't get it. Might have been a defensive pass interference call that didn't get called. Bo Nix took some exception with the officiating after the game in regards to that. But, they just were not able to take advantage of their opportunities inside the red zone against a really good team. And then you saw it there in the third quarter when they finally did get a touchdown. They were able to get some things going on the ground. They ran the ball 2 plays inside the inside the 15-yard line, I believe. Both runs produced a touchdown with Tank Bigsby punching it in from 6 yards out.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And, the run game, I think that's obviously one area, of concern, just kind of talking about that. I think the run game, obviously, especially going into this game against Arkansas this week, the run game will be important to kind of get things back into rhythm. But you go up against this Georgia front, rushing 46 yards total, the expectation, certainly you want that number to be much better, but going up against defense. That will be an area that we hope to see continue to grow and improve, and just get behind your guy, Tank Bigsby, give him the rock, pound it. Okay, too many drop passes. The wide receivers, that's been another area of concern for this team. Harsin firing his receivers coach, they're, I guess, 4 games into the season?
Yep.
And then, again, looking at the overall completion percentage, but the drop passes. I think it was noted statistically, you had noted 7 drop passes at 23 total in 6 games, 7 drop passes in this game alone, which is the most in the SEC. So that's something that's going to be a big concern. Just what are you kind of seeing from your eyes and from your lens of where the issues are with these drop passes and how critical they are?
Yeah, I mean, some of it, look, I'm sure some of these throws have a little bit extra mustard from Bo Nix, but I mean, as a receiver, tight end, a running back, whatever position you're playing, you need to be able to haul those passes in. You talked about those 7 drop passes yesterday. At least 5 of those came in really critical situations that, might have at least changed the complexion of the game. I mean, we mentioned the drop pass by John Samuel Shanker on that opening drive. That would have been a touchdown. The very next drive, Sean Shivers' ball hit him right in the hands out of the backfield, and instead Nakobe Dean picks it off and Georgia gets a short field to tie the game. Shedrick Jackson dropped a 3rd down pass right up the seam that would have gotten them into Georgia territory late in the first half. Demetrius Robertson dropped a screen that looked like it was pretty well set up and probably was going to go for a substantial gain. He also had a drop on a 4th down pass in the second half. These are just situations where you need to be able to execute and, come down with these plays. Brian Harsin said, it's obviously something they've been trying to address. It's not something that's going to be fixed overnight as much as everybody would like it to be fixed overnight. They need to find solutions because whatever they're doing is not working.
Yeah, definitely finding those solutions are going to be critical as we move forward in the season. So kind of taking a look at the schedule, Arkansas, they're at Arkansas, coming up, I guess, 11 a.m. Central Time on CBS this upcoming week, obviously. And then you get Ole Miss back at home. Then you go to Texas A&M. This is when you go to the 12th man to Aggie Land, where Texas A&M obviously just beat Alabama. Then you get Mississippi State back home. Then you're at South Carolina. Then you're home against Alabama. That's the rest of the slate, the rest of this year. Just in your mind, as you look at sort of the landscape of things and where they're sitting right now, 4-2 on the season, 1-1 in the SEC, where do they go from here?
It doesn't get any easier. Obviously, okay, maybe it does get a little bit easier because Georgia is the top team in the country. But you look at this schedule, Arkansas, they've been playing very good football this year. Obviously, they got shut out by Georgia 2 weeks ago and then lost a heartbreaker to Ole Miss on that 2-point conversion miss late. But that's a very tough game. It's going to be on the road. It's going to be an early start, so they're going to have to get things going early on. Then they have the bye week to kind of recuperate and regroup before going into that final stretch of the season. But like you said, they still have a trip to Texas A&M. They still have Mississippi State on there. They still have a trip to South Carolina where they lost last year. And then they have Alabama in the Iron Bowl. This is a very difficult schedule. Auburn knows that the schedule is going to be difficult every year. I mean, that's just the nature of, being in the SEC West and having Georgia as your cross-division rival. So they know it's a very difficult road ahead. But Brian Harsin was asked after the game Saturday if he thought that this was a rebuilding job. He didn't say it was, but he acknowledged that, this is a year where this team is going to have to set the foundation for what they want this program to be. And he wants this program to be like a Georgia, a team that can compete consistently for division championships and SEC championships and be in that discussion for the college football playoff, which Kirby Smart's been able to do since he's been at Georgia. So it's going to take time. It's not going to be an easy road, but, Brian Harsin expressed optimism about, what's ahead for Auburn and what this team is still capable of doing. I mean, the loss to Georgia wasn't pretty. Obviously not what you want, especially at home. But, that Texas A&M win over Alabama, kind of left the SEC West pretty wide open. So it's not over for Auburn. There is hope. They just, need to show improvement.
Yep. We'll see how things go out this weekend, week 7 of the season. Auburn at Arkansas, CBS. They're a 3.5-point underdog at this point. 11 a.m. kickoff for them. Looking forward to it. I know you'll be making the trip there to Fayetteville and enjoying that trip to good old Arkansas. So enjoy it. Travel safe, Tom. We appreciate all your insight. As always, again, thank you for our sponsors. Keep Alabama beautiful. And thank you all